All right, Pelicans fans, it's Kyle T. Mosley of the Pelicans Scoop here with Wilton Jackson of Sports Illustrated. How you doing, Wilt?
I am doing good, Cal. Glad to be on. What about yourself?
Man, just hanging out this weekend, light weekend, because the Pelicans is not in the in-season tournament. So, unfortunately for us, we get to see those guys when they get back to action going into this week. But everybody, everybody's been lambasting Zion Williamson for the performance. It was not just Zion who lost that game. It was a collective team effort that these guys did fall to the Los Angeles Lakers in the semifinals of the NBA in-season tournament. Well, a lot of people have been going after Zion. You had Charles Barkley talking about his conditioning. Then you had JJ Redick today. He went off on Zion a little bit. Then you had a couple of people coming to his defense. His trainer said, "Hey, look, when you get his ex-trainer, when you get a lean Zion, you get a Zion that's going to be a force to reckon with." And I think that's one of the main elements people have been talking about. But just, I don't want to talk too much about the weight issue, but what I want to talk about is what you think about what happened in Las Vegas, as well as what can be done for the Pelicans to improve going forward.
Cal, I hate to say it's simple, but in a grand scheme of things, it kind of is simple. And we've said this before on the times that I've talked with you on this podcast. Like, everything starts and ends with Zion. And when you look at that game in Vegas, that wasn't the Pelicans team that we saw in the in-season tournament. Like, not at all. Like, this was a game that it was close in the first couple minutes, or the first quarter at least. And even going into halftime, I think they were down by 9. But Cal, you saw the same game I watched. Prolific performance from LeBron James, absolutely stunning. Like, to know that he's doing that and he's about to turn 39 at the end of December is crazy. But
right.
At the same time, you saw a Zion who was not aggressive. Like I told you, we were offline talking about this. In the very first play of the game, he got the ball, he took a dribble towards LeBron. LeBron was guarding him for sure on those first 2 plays on that side of the court, and he passed the ball. And I'm thinking to myself, why are you passing the ball? I get it that you don't want to pick up a foul or anything like that, early foul trouble, but you weren't being aggressive at all. Like, of course, you got the tip ins around the rim and put them back, but the Zion that we expect to see, the one that's aggressive, that gets the flow of the offense going for the Pelicans, we didn't see that. And it was evident. Like, they came down the court, settling for jump shots. Of course, you had people like, Dyson Daniels and Jose Alvarado coming in and bringing in the energy, but that was only for certain spurts. But other than that, like, this was a team that was totally out of sync in the second half. And honestly, Kyle, they gave up. And it was clear that they gave up. I mean, granted, LeBron was putting on a show, but they gave up.
That's concerning right there. To consider if the Pelicans did give up on trying to win the game. I guess in all actuality, when you see a 30-point lead in the third period, that is kind of demoralizing. But I want to go back to something, man. And this is something that I guess us old guys can be able to touch upon. I recall when Shaq was in awe of Hakeem Olajuwon in that finals. And he admitted, man, he was the same and he wasn't as aggressive when he was playing for the Orlando Magic. And Hakeem just took it to him, to be able to win in, I think it was four straight. Yeah, they swept those guys in that final. Now, then you go to, I believe it was LeBron when he first went to Miami, recall, and he was just giving up the ball and allowing Dwayne Wade as well as Bosh to be able to handle the ball in critical times where people were expecting him to be able to be the one. I think this comes as a learning lesson for Zion, and I think it's a good learning lesson because it was a national spotlight, number one. Number two, it was against one of the greatest players to ever live. in LeBron James, and he saw how LeBron focused, took over, and decided my team was going to win and it was going to come through me. So I think those are a couple of elements that he can be able to learn from. I don't see it as where a lot of people are about to cash in their season tickets in New Orleans and think all is lost. Now, I would say this after that All-Star break, if these guys continue on that same path in that same trajectory going downward, yeah, then we have an issue. But I think right now that Pelicans team learned something at that particular time, and I think Zion learned something as well. What's your thoughts?
Absolutely, Cal. It was definitely a learning lesson, and I think most people thought that this was going to be the Pelicans team that they saw coming into, the team that they saw during the in-season tournament games previously prior to that semifinal game. And so it was a learning lesson for them. And more so than anything, how many times have we heard Zion specifically in the offseason say that he wanted to be better? He wanted to be able to train himself like some of the greats, like the LeBron James, and someone who is, again, almost 39 years old, still defeating Father Time, and does not seem that it's coming anytime soon.
I need to know what he's doing. Don.
Me too, because when I get to be 38 and 39 years old, I want to be just as good as this guy. Maybe not on the basketball court, but be able to run around some kids or something like that when I have some. But more than anything,
I'm pushing 59s. I want to know what he's doing.
Exactly, because the guy, I mean, what he's doing is unheard of. It's incredible. It's commendable. It's unheard of. All the other words that you could use to describe it. But more than anything, if I'm Zion, I need to take a look in the mirror and say, if this is the player that I want to be like, if I want to be like the greats, like the LeBron James, the Kobe Bryants, the Michael Jordans, the Magic Johnsons, the list goes on. I have to do the small things. And that's what you kind of alluded to, what Shaq was saying after the game up when he went up against Hakeem Olajuwon. Yeah, you Shaq, he even mentioned this. You averaged 20 points, 10 rebounds. Okay, cool, But to be great, to be dominant, you have to do the small things. And what we do know is the small things aren't used and they aren't built when the season starts. Those things are built before the season starts. Those are the things that no one sees you doing that you're willing to put in the work to do. And you set the example for the rest of your teammates. And so most of us thought that this was going to be the time. This was going to be that coming out party for the Pelicans to show that they could compete and potentially beat some of the top tier contending teams in the Western Conference. And as after looking at their game, it just kind of showed like, they're not ready yet, based off that performance. And granted, that was only one performance. And you also alluded to the fact that like there's a lot more games to be played. They have a lot more opportunities to get it together, but it just was not the showing that we were expecting to see from the Pelicans in that matchup.
Yeah, I think it's one of the cases of how early Kirk Cousins was when it came to the primetime games. He wasn't showing up, and I think these guys were not ready for primetime players out there against the Lakers. Now, I got to give kudos to Brandon Ingram as well as CJ.
Yep.
They as well as Giannis, and I'm happy to say everybody else and Herb too. I got to throw this. All of those guys were trying to attack the basket. Herb was hustling. Giannis was hustling. You saw Brandon. Hey, if he's not going to score, I'm going to try to score. Right? You saw CJ trying to attack the basket as well. It was the part that I guess the disconnect you talked about right there. And I think the big guy has to realize that he has to be the guy connected with. It's a whole symbiotic relationship, and he has to be connected with his fellow teammates that expect him to be in focus, especially when it comes to the big time games, because big time players show up in big time games. And if you want to be considered the number one overall that they're paying the max contracts to, you have to be the guy that, all right, give me the ball and I'm going to take the fouls. Right? You saw him shine away from that. I'm going to be the one crashing the boards, right? I'm going to be the one. Remember when he was a rookie, just taking the ball out of people's hand and swatting and just being a monster. And I think he has that capability still. I don't know if it's all on conditioning, but sometimes, well, that could be mental, right?
Right. Absolutely right. And everything you said that Zion needs to be is what he is exactly what he needs to be. And you're absolutely right. A lot of it is mental, but it's you have to get to a point where you become fed up with the fact of, okay, this is mediocre. And someone actually having the gumption and the wherewithal to tell you, okay, yeah, Zion, you got 20 and 10, but your team lost by 15. You got 25
It
and
really is
12.
20 and 5 that he's averaging, not the 10. See, that's the extra 5 rebounds that we need to have out of him. Go ahead.
And you talk about rebounds. One thing that he's not doing enough of, he's also not running the floor like he needs to run the floor. The transition defense on several occasions during that game was non-existent. LeBron, of course, obviously is a superstar, but dude, they made him look godly in that game. He was already looking godly, but he looked godly.
Remember that time he ran the floor and Zion was flat-footed, standing to the left of the basket, and LeBron just cut and just looked like he exploded out of nowhere.
Yep.
And I got to say this, man. You have to appreciate that talent, but you also have to appreciate that grit that he displayed, because it takes a gritty type of performance from a superstar sometimes just to be able to spark your guys. You saw that with Jose Alvarado, Najee Marshall, those guys when they got into that game early on in the first quarter to be able to help get them back where they were a 1-point lead, 30-29. That's what you're looking for in your stars as well. Sometimes it calls you to trying to run and grab a ball that's going out of bounds, or trying to swat at something. You know you're going to get air, but at least attempting to be able to affect the offensive player for their side. You have to do something that's going to be kind of inspiring. Yes, that's the word. Inspiring to your guys if you want to be a superstar. And that's what you saw in LeBron. And you saw it in AD as well. AD
right.
came to play. He was not playing around on that one. But that's the measure of what you see from champions. And I think I expressed this question to a couple of people before the season. Did the New Orleans Pelicans need to find somebody who had previous championship experience to try to bring them onto the squad? May not be as a starter, but somebody who can be able to be that vocal, behind the scenes type of guy, as well as show their gumption on the floor as well. Now, I know they got Zeller. He has been in the finals and everything else, but that's not what I was talking about. I think they probably need to see somebody who's been there and done it. And I saw it firsthand when they went against the Rockets. Van Vliet, when he took over that first game when they were leading, and they could have easily won that game up by 8 or 7 points, it was Van Vliet who came in and said, hey, give me the ball. And then Dylan said, give me the ball. And those guys went at the Pelicans, and the Pelicans folded. That was another time where Zion did not show up through the last couple of stages of the game, and he needs to be the guy getting the ball, not just putting it all on Brandon Ingram. All right. So those are just my thoughts, man. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know I need some therapy, but help me out there, Will.
No, you're not too wrong in that aspect. I think any team in the NBA, especially if you're a young team, even if you are a veteran team, it always helps to have championship experience on the squad, because if you've never been there, you don't know what it's like. Even if you've been to, you've played in the play-in, or if you've been in the playoffs, but if you've been in the playoffs and you only been to the first round, or you made it to the semifinal round and you've been put out several times, it's like, yeah, you have that experience, but you don't know what it feels like to get in that championship, those NBA finals, and know what it takes, that level of energy, that extra dedication, that extra, lap in the court in practice that you might have to run, or that extra drill that it takes, because you just never know when you might have to cut a defender off that's trying to get up court and get a steal. And that could be the difference in a game. How many times have we seen games come down to the smallest details, whether it's from a situation where the official makes a call, whether it was an offensive foul or a charge here and there, a steal, a critical basket, a free throw, i.e. Zion, we need you to practice on those a little bit more. But those are the things that make good players great. And if you want to be great and you're the player that you are in Zion, making the max amount of dollars that you're making, you have to set the tone for everyone else on the team. Yes, I know there's CJ McCollum. Yes, I know there's, Jose Alvarado. Yes, I know there's Brandon Ingram. I know all of that, but they're going to follow off of your lead because you're the player that needs to come together, that's going to build the continuity for everyone else to succeed.
Yeah, there are those times that the star players do have to put their trust in their teammates. You can't do it all. You can't be even Michael Jordan had to dish it off to Kerr. Exactly. Even Kobe had to allow Shaq to have the ball, or those
Robert
guys
Ory,
inside.
Rick Fox, Derek Fisher.
Right. It came to those times, and I saw it in Houston also. Elijah Wan wasn't the guy all the time, so he had Kenny Smith and those other guys right there helping out to be able to win a championship. All right, let's talk about the Pelicans' schedule going forward. You had some very, very insightful things to say right before the new year. The Pelicans have a opportunity to gain some momentum back and be able to put some W's in the column. Talk about that.
They do, Kyle. So, obviously they returned to action on Monday. They play the Timberwolves. Now, I'm not going to say that's going to be an easy game. Obviously, Timberwolves number one in the West right now. But after that game, they have a series of games leading up with the Wizards. They have Charlotte. They have San Antonio. They have the Grizzlies on the 19th. The 21st, they have Cleveland. And from Cleveland, they have Houston again. That's a good chance to kind of get that revenge and to see how they stack up against Houston. Because that won't necessarily be an easy game. Then on the day after Christmas, they have the Grizzlies again. They have the Utah Jazz on the 28th. And then on New Year's Eve, as you alluded to, they have the Lakers. So believe it or not, that game, you already played the Lakers in this in-season tournament. What would you have learned in, say, a matter of 8 to 9 games that you can now put in place? Hopefully, we'll see a more developed Pelicans team with more continuity, and also one that a team that will be aggressive and not like the showing that we got from them in the semifinal game of the in-season tournament.
Right. Another aspect was the ball movement. It wasn't there, man. There was just one, let's take a dribble, let's try to shoot. One, let's take a dribble, try to shoot. So that's another aspect. But I like what you said. You guys got games that are winnable before you. And if you look at that schedule, I would say the Pelicans have the ability to at least win, let's see, 1, 2, 3, around 6 of these games easily. But before you say easy, you've got to be able to get it done.
And at the end of the day, the games are always played on the court.
That's right. It's always on the court, baby. So Willie Green, right now, if you're Willie Green, if you're Trajan Langdon, as well as Griff, do you say, hey, where can we get better? What do we do? If there's a transaction to be made, what players would possibly be available right before the All-Star break to try to get somebody in and fit our team and help us out to try to make a run at this championship?
Well, I think when you think about that, you look at the layers and really look at the way that this Pelican team is situated. I think if anything, what would probably truly help them, and I know that they have, CJ McCollum running at the guard position, but to have someone that's truly a point guard, like really about facilitation and getting players in place to make shots, I think that would help out tremendously. And that's, like I said, I love the way that Jose Alvarado comes in and brings the energy. I love what CJ McCollum does in his rotation at the guard position. But someone like, you remember what Rajon Rondo was to Boston? Like
Yes.
we knew that Rajon Rondo was not going to score the most points in that time frame when he was playing with Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett. Like that wasn't necessarily his role. You didn't bring in Rajon Rondo to score 20 and 10, right? Like you brought in Rajon Rondo to score, if he gave you anywhere between 12, 13 points, but maybe 8 or 9 assists that went to Ray Allen or Paul Pierce or Kevin Garnett, like it worked out to where the offense was constantly moving. I feel like that might be a missing piece to really get this Pelicans team going, number one. And I think for two, it just goes back to the basics, Kyle. Zion running the court, being aggressive, because like I said, when your star player is not being aggressive, that energy is infectious. It's gonna affect every other player on the court. Granted, you have the players like Brandon Ingram and some of the others that were still aggressive, but if your star player is not aggressive, it's easy to say, well, shoot, he's not scoring, he's not trying to get additional baskets in the paint.
Why should I?
Yeah. Exactly. And that you don't need that energy going for, especially like I said during the like you said, in terms of in the time of the year where you're talking about going into the All-Star break, potentially still being in the mix for maybe a playoff spot or a play-in spot. And we know just last year how competitive was it just to get one of those final play-in spots to even potentially make the playoffs. And so this year it's going to be no different. We know the Western Conference is stacked. Right now, you're talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves right now on December, whatever day it is. They're number one in the Western Conference. You have the Oklahoma City Thunder, who just won last night over Golden State.
Yeah.
A championship team that has solidified itself, right? Then you have, the Nuggets, the Lakers, the Mavericks, the Kings, the Suns. None of these teams are going anywhere. So if you're New Orleans, you have to sincerely look yourself in the mirror after this in-season tournament game and over these next 9 to 10 games and really say, we have to check ourselves and be better. Number one, and we need to take advantage of, playing our best basketball going into the holidays, because believe it or not, what you're doing right now, when you come back after the new year, it doesn't get easier. It's only going to get tougher. Teams are going to, by that time, have built more continuity with each other. And it's going to be tougher to beat some of these same teams that you may have beat maybe in the first or second month of the season. So it's about preparation and owning where you need to improve and get better at.
Man, you said a lot, man, and it makes sense because the Pelicans right now sit at number 10 in the Western Conference. That's not where you want to be.
No.
And think about this. Like you say, you got the Wolves, Thunder, Mavericks, Nuggets, Lakers, and Kings above those guys. Then the Suns and the Rockets are above you, and the Clippers are above you. Teams that you've beaten this season, and think about this: John Moran is coming back. So the Grizzlies, you never know what's going to happen, man. And I think it's going to be an exciting stretch for the Pelicans if they can go in kind of up near the number 6 spot going into the new year. I think these guys may have a chance, but it's a mental thing, I think, more so than a talent thing for New Orleans right now. And can they mentally work well together? That's going to be the answer for them to be able to find. And, other than that, I think the Pelicans have a great squad, a lot of talent, a lot of depth. You just got to want it. You got to earn it.
Absolutely.
You got to believe.
There's no question that the Pelicans, when everybody's playing in sync and playing together, they have one of the most talented teams in the league on offense and defense.
Yeah.
And there's no reason that they can't compete with any of these teams in the Western Conference.
Yeah. And I think you have to think about every game going forward as a knockout game, guys. This, if we lose this, we lose a championship. I know it's kind of, you're not going to get that full effort every game, but you've got to consider what's ahead of you. Like you said, this Western Conference is stacked, loaded, and ready, and the showdowns are going to take place throughout the rest of the year. All right. Well, any last thoughts, comments, criticisms?
Kyle, I think we covered it all. Like I said, I just want to see what I really want to see what this Pelicans team can truly be. In these previous years, specifically last year and year before that, we've seen that Zion's in. He's been out. He's out. You've had other players step in. You've had other players to come off the bench as contributors to really help this team to try to stay afloat. But more than anything, when you pretty much have, and fingers crossed that everybody stays healthy, you have the opportunity to really make something of this franchise. And I would hate for them to, miss out on an opportunity to really, make this season count, because I feel like they can. I really feel like they can. I think, like you said, more so from a mental standpoint. And again, looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, we have everything we need as long as we play together for each other. No, being lackadaisical on loose balls, running after balls on the court, getting rebounds, things like that. Those things separate good teams from great teams. And when they're willing to do those things, Zion crashed the boards, continue to improve on, obviously making his free throws. I don't ever expect him to be a 90% free throw shooter, but at the same time, if you're going to be active and aggressive in the paint, might as well get down there, get fouled, and make the shots. That's extra points coming to your team. That shows that that ownership upon yourself to say, you know what, I'm trying to get better in this regard.
That was always perplexing to me, from a guy who can shoot 3-pointers because he used to shoot 3-pointers very well. This year is not so good. That when you get to the charity stripe, you're danking and dunking, bang, bang, bang. The bricks are just falling from everywhere, man. I was just kind of floored about that. Brandon Ingram as well. I was just like, what's going on? You guys, you can't make a free throw. But one thing I did notice, when his technique at the free throw line was off when he got winded. Guys, I know I said I didn't want to bring in the conditioning, but he was a little bit winded. And when you're tired, man, your technique sometimes get off and you just want to get it up, So hopefully that could be checked out with Willie Green and his staff. But I will say this. Well, I do think there's going to have to be some hard decisions made by the executive team going before the All-Star break. I think they're going to have to make a deal. I really do. And you look at the talent on the team, and you may not want to say it, and I know people are going to probably put their hands over the ears, the eyes, and they don't want to hear it. But one of these names, Murphy, Jones, Alvarado, somebody might not be with this team in this home stretch down the line. I don't know. They haven't talked to me about it. It's just my opinion, guys. And I don't want to see any of those young guys go. If they can make a deal and not lose somebody, that'll be great, But I think if somebody really wants to make a deal, hey, they may ask for some young talent in return. All right, I'm Kyle T. Mosley of the Pelicans Scoop on Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation. That's Mr. Wilton Jackson from Sports Illustrated himself. Wilt, thank you so much, buddy.
Thanks, Kyle. Thank you for having me. Really, really enjoyed this. Look forward to doing it again.
Definitely. All right, guys, check us out. Go to si.com/NBA/Pelicans, or just type in Pelicans Scoop. That's with one S, not two, Pelicans Scoop, and it'll take you directly.com, and it'll take you directly to our Sports Illustrated Fan Nation site. All right, take care and go Pelicans.